What's happening, everybody? TK here, TK and Drinks, and we're here with our second installment of the TK and Drinks BJCP Style Guidelines Advice series. We're doing the M1B semi-sweet traditional today. We should be joined by Mr. Alan Martin here relatively soon. Throughout this series, I'm going to be joined by different commercial mead makers and home brewers alike who will be sharing their award-winning advice, tips, tricks, hints, that type of thing, and giving you as much advice as I can. Sorry, I was just getting some text messages going on, and there we go. Get the people going in. Appreciate everybody popping in here. Let's go live, and we'll be good to go. Ooh, I am spitzing over here. It's a warm day in Virginia. Good evening, Alan. How you doing, brother?
Hey, hey.
Can you see me this time?
Nope.
I said nope, unfortunately. We can try it one more time and reconnect, and it'll do something for us, or we can just go with it as it is.
Right.
You want to just go with it how it is?
I'm good. I know what you look like.
Excellent point, sir. Well, everybody, this is Mr. Alan Martin. He is a AMMA Mead Maker of the Year, multi-award winner of that, and he has graciously decided to join us and share his style advice for M1B semi-sweet traditionals. So thank you again for joining us today, Alan. How you been doing these last couple days?
Good, good. Just got off of work a few minutes ago. So,
Oof.
but yeah,
Well,
I got lots of meads going. Ready to talk about BJCP style guideline, semi-sweet traditional.
awesome. Yeah, it's definitely a late one for me over here, but it's gonna be my West Coast edition, so I'm super excited for this. And since how we are doing the M1B traditional, semi-sweet traditional, I guess it makes probably sense to start with the question is, what what defines a great semi-sweet traditional to you, or just in general?
Well, you definitely want to pick a good honey that's going to have good character. So with semi-sweet, I mean, there's going to be should be a decent honey profile, but it's not like a sweet meat where you can really get uh, a good sense of the flavor of that honey because you can add so much more of it.
Right.
So yeah, you need to pick a honey that's going to be that's going to stand out and be good. And then the BJCP style guidelines gives you a range of specific gravity or sweetness that you can be at.
Sure.
I believe it's
1010 to 1025
yeah, 11 gravity points up to 20.
per brick.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't do bricks. I do specific gravity.
Oh, got you. Okay.
So in order to get the most flavor out of that category, you got to want to put the most honey in that you can get away with. So none of the judges are sitting there with hydrometers and measuring to see if it's 1.020 or less. So as long as it's perceived, and that's a real key term, as long as it's perceived as being semi-sweet,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter what the measured specific gravity is. So
That's a good way of looking at it. People shouldn't necessarily be concerned about what the hydrometer says. Should be concerned about its perceived sweetness factor.
exactly. So anybody that tuned in on your last show with Nick, he talked about balancing sweetness with acidity and tannins.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to push that limit of sweetness for that category and maybe even go over the 1.020, then you need to have tannins, acidity, carbonation, maybe in a little more excess to balance that so you can get away with it.
Yeah, and carbonation is one of the things we haven't really talked about too much yet, but you can definitely use carbonic carbonic acid. I don't know if it's technically carbonic acid, but you can use CO2 to help round out a body problem, or if you got something that's thin, you can boost it up that way. You can add just a little bit more complexity and uniqueness to the flavor profile and overall character of the mead. So definitely carbonation is a way to help, and it can even cut down sweetness on an overly sweet mead or something sweeter than you were expecting to put in there, so to speak. So definitely like the
Absolutely.
carbonation aspect of that.
So yeah,
Um,
I have found that carbonation will take the perception of gravity points down probably close to about 5 points.
that's significant.
So yeah,
Um, so
that's in a
I,
highly carbonated mead.
yeah, sure. Um, so I guess going back to what you were kind of saying, leading off the conversation, at what point in the process do you choose the honey for your mead? I'm guessing that's probably, again, with all the traditionals, going to be that probably paramount. And straight away is, first thing you do is choose the honey. Otherwise, you're kind of missing the point of the traditional.
Yeah. So, I went with honeys that I heard through friends,
Hmm.
other mead makers that I ran into, not only locally, but on Modern Mead Makers Facebook group that
Yeah.
would say, hey, this honey here is just outstanding. And they would give you some flavor, highlights and notes of what it is. And if it's something that you think you would like, somebody, something like the sweet clover that I've won so many medals with,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wayne Gibbons sweet clover from Gibbons Honey Farm. It's just such an outstanding honey that has a nice cinnamon note to it. And but if you're going to buy it, you got to commit to a 5 gallon payable. So
Yeah. That's
you
another
can go.
thing. When you start, if you're going to start entering competitions, it probably wouldn't hurt to be buying things on a larger scale like that, so you can make these. I mean, if you're going to be entering one competition, I suppose you could be making 1 gallon batches. But if you're not making a significant number to enter multiple competitions of the same batch, that's really what's going to give you, I think, more viable feedback from different regions and whatnot.
Sure. Yeah, I always said you need to get feedback from at least 3 different comps to get a good sense of how that meat is going to do overall.
That's a phenomenal way of looking at it because you're certainly going to get those regional biases, but if you can get you get feedback from, like you said, 3 different competitions, and they're all saying X, Y, or Z. You can probably have a fairly certain that those characteristics are being perceived,
Yeah.
accurately.
Yeah. The last thing you want to do is send your meat to one comp and then make a huge change in that meat based off of one comp. That's probably not wise.
Yeah, that's definitely definitely a very wise choice there. So, how big of a role does yeast selection play in your um, in your mead crafting for traditionals?
So when it comes to traditionals, I've narrowed it down to I just have one yeast that is my go-to yeast for all my traditionals.
Mm,
And that's typically what I do when I get a new honey is first thing I want to do is make a traditional to see what that honey is going to taste like through fermentation and and go from there. But yeah, so for me, it's DV10. DV10 by far is like it doesn't do anything at all. It doesn't enhance anything. It doesn't change anything. It's a nice, super clean fermenter, and it's a pretty aggressive yeast, so it does a really good job at powering through fermentations.
hmm
But I do it really cold. Um,
On the
actually, have
colder
the
end.
yeah, yeah. So I have the Scott Labs handbook pulled up here in front of me, and so the temperature range for DV10 is 50 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh wow,
So
okay.
I'm typically in the 50s when I'm doing my traditionals with that yeast, and it's just comes out such a clean, ready to drink mead because it's a slow and controlled fermentation. So the downside is going to take longer. It's like a 3 week fermentation. So
Yeah. I was gonna say I'm sure it ferments a little bit slower at that lower temperature, but not everything can be fermented in 38 hours like a Kveik at 110, so to speak.
right. But you know,
Um,
you got to look at it this way: it's a trade-off. You
yeah,
want to spend an extra week in fermentation up front, or you want to blow through fermentation and have some higher fusel, maybe fusel alcohols that you got to let age out for months.
yeah, very true. And one of the things that I've actually learned from you that I think has really enhanced my mead making game was the addition of oak during primary. There's no
Sure.
reason why you shouldn't throw oak cubes in during primary. It's not going to hurt the yeast. It's not going to harm the fermentation process or anything like that. And you're going to start getting that tannic value added in um, at a sooner. So you're going to be able to have that much more time once you're out of fermentation. And man, that's really upped my game as far as every mead I make. I personally like a heavier tannin mead. And
Mhm.
that's I thought was a great way, especially with traditionals, that it's going to help round out that body, and it's not going to increase. It's going to not increase your post fermentation time.
Right, especially when you're dealing with hydromels or session meads that you want to get finished quick, and you still want that tannin complexity and balance. You throw it in right up front, and by the time this
Yep,
mead's 3 weeks, and I put it on chips, so there's a quick absorption rate with chips, and so yeah, in 3 weeks' time, it's had enough time on that oak, and it's ready to get clarified and kegged and drank.
absolutely. So do you have a specific feeding schedule specifically for traditionals that you've come up with, or do you pretty much have a feeding schedule that's consistent across the board, or how does that work?
Across the board, I stick with the toast nut,
Yeah,
use Fermato,
yeah,
do my, 24, 40, because I am doing it so cold and my fermentations are taking longer. Sometimes I
yeah,
don't do 24, 48, 70. Sometimes I spread it out a little bit further.
sure. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I always like I try to do both. I try to go at 24 hours and then measure see if I've hit that one third sugar break, so to speak, and try to measure those things. But I never really have gotten that down yet because I think I ferment in a uncontrolled atmosphere as much as I have. I really like to get somewhere in like a basement or somewhere that has got like a consistent temperature to really up my fermentation
Right.
game.
Yeah. So for those of you out there, listening that are relatively new into bead making, number one, and it was one of the first things I did was get temperature control. You gotta
Mm-hmm.
have it. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, if you can get like an ink bird and get like some and get a setup with like some sort of Rubbermaid tub and kind of quasi insulated or something, like any of those types of things that you can do to help just keep any any anything you can do to help your
Yeah.
stabilize your fermentation temperature is going to go leaps and bounds.
Just, you can pick up an old, mini fridge
That too.
used and stick an Inkbird temperature controller on it, and that can be your fermentator. That little refrigerator right back there, I
Yeah.
can I got a 10-gallon bucket I can fit in there.
Hell yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. If you can put kegs in there to have a kegerator, why couldn't you like get a different type of thermostat and just have it at a specific? Oh yeah, no, 100%. That's a great idea. Never, I hadn't thought about converting a mini fridge over to a fermenter though, but I'm
Yeah.
totally here for that.
It'll fit a
Um,
5-gallon bucket easy.
oh yeah, big time. Um,
So
so you had mentioned earlier about, or we had been speaking about, adding tannin, like specifically oak chips or cubes or something during the fermentation process. But how do you use or recommend products like a FT Blanc or like a Opti White or something like that for your traditionals?
so you're switching over to adjuncts. Huh?
Yeah, I mean,
So
they're technically adjuncts, I guess, but I
yeah,
don't think
so I
anybody ever claims them.
yeah, so if you go on, one of my best resources that I tell everybody is Scott Lab's Handbook. It's free. You can get it online, and they update it every year. And not only does it cover all about the different yeast and all their temperature requirements, but it also gets into a lot into just basic fermentation principles and how to do things. Um, so there's tons and tons of adjuncts out there that Scott Labs have that you can use to enhance all these different nuances of fruits and regular meads.
Yeah.
Um, I use FT Blanc and Opti White for my traditional meads. And what those things do is they help enhance and retain color. They help with mouthfeel, and they also help with controlling oxidation. So those are three important things. Now, could you make a really good traditional mead without using those? Sure. But if you want to go one step up and hit that next level from an excellent mead to a world-class mead,
Yeah.
then you want to throw everything at it that you can. So
Well, that was going to lead. That's a great segue into my next question, which is what can you do to take those meads that are, say, like a 32 and boost them up to like a 42 or even beyond that?
that takes a little bit of practice um, with competitions. You got to drink a lot of meads. You got to taste a lot of meads. You got to, you know, and once you're in
Yeah.
a position that you can do it, depending on where you live and what's available, try to get into some judging some meads at your local homebrew comps.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be a certified judge to judge.
Nope.
Um, most homebrew clubs are going to they'll pair you up with somebody that's a judge. They'll let you get some practice. And that's a good way to not only taste more meads, but taste meads from other regions of the country.
Hmm.
You know,
Very true.
instead of tasting the same stuff all the time from your, couple or three friends maybe that are local, you're getting meads from all over the place. So,
Right.
and,
And then,
until you've judged or tasted at least a few of one style, how do you know if it's good or bad? Right? Yep.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. That was, I'd say, the biggest thing for me is getting out and trying. One of the biggest things that's helped my mead making is trying other people's meads and discovering A, what I like and what I don't like, and then B, what other people um, agree with me. I don't know how to put that. Finding areas where other people agree, and I feel like, yeah, I'm
Mhm.
confident that I'm picking up, I'm correctly identifying a fault, or I've identified a flavor profile or a nuanced aromatic or something like that. I think those things help build your confidence in, certainly in the judging aspect, but also in being a more strategic and a more just a better brewer in general, or mead maker.
Yeah, absolutely. When you pair up, two or three people judging the same mead, like you said, after you're done judging, you guys can talk about it and compare notes, and you
Yeah,
get some validation when you find out they're picking up the same thing you did. So, yeah, exactly what you just said. It's a
yeah,
good feeling, and it validates you, and it makes you more secure in what you're doing.
yeah. 100% confidence and security in your thoughts, your judgments, your notions. All those things are going to help you be a better mead maker, better judge. It's going to bolster just your overall performance in the whole thing. I'm here for it.
Yeah, and you'll
Uh,
get tons of ideas about other, other mead making projects you want to take
oh,
on when you start tasting all these other meads.
absolutely. I've gotten a ton of ideas and stuff from competitions, and then you also get to leave with bottles if there's anything that you come across that you like that nobody else wants when you're done. But like you mentioned though, it's the biggest thing is the exposure to the other people's methods and styles of making the same thing that you're making or trying to make in this instance.
And
So
if you only have a few different types of honey that are available to you, locally, it's a
yeah,
good way to start building your, repertoire of honeys that you're familiar with and what their flavor profiles are. So,
absolutely.
I mean, because nobody can afford to buy every single kind of varietal honey that there is out there because that's impossible.
Oh yeah. I went to school for video production, and I had a professor was used to say had the sayings like, you want to start making TV, you want to start making better TV, stop watching TV and start watching TV. And I think that applies on a kind of more metaphorical sense. It's like, if you want to stop making mead, stop making it and start making it. Pay attention to what other people are doing. Like, really don't just kind of go haphazardly off the cuff. Oh, I want to make, this big crazy mellow, this bigger thing. Like, stop, think about it, nerd out about it on a scientific level. Like you said, get the Scott's Lab handbook, especially if it's free. Collect as many different honeys as you can. See what the different nuances are when you ferment them with different yeasts at different temperatures. All those different things are only going to be able to bolster, again, your tool belt, make you a better mead maker.
Absolutely. One other thing I wanted to touch on too about balance.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And it's really important that I really preach to a lot of young mead makers is you have to understand that part of that balance equation, we talked about acid and tannins and sweetness, but alcohol, the alcohol content, alcohol has aroma, alcohol has flavor, and it's actually on the balance scale, alcohol is on the same side with sweetness.
Yes.
So alcohol and sweetness are balanced by acidity, tannins,
carbonation.
Yeah, and carbonation. I consider carbonation and acidity kind of in the same.
Sure, absolutely.
It just increases. Yeah, carbonation just increases carbonic acid. But yeah, so very, very important that you understand when you're creating your recipe or your mead that you want to make, that you got to work backwards. You got to kind of figure out, okay, if I'm doing a traditional and this is the honey I want to do it with, how much flavor does this honey have? How much flavor is this honey going to carry forward into after secondary?
Yeah.
And if it's a lighter honey that doesn't have a lot of flavor, don't make it 14%, 16%, 18%. It's going to be like drinking gasoline, right?
Very true.
So
yeah.
You have to kind of figure out your balance at the beginning. So, a lighter honey like this sweet clover, I probably wouldn't go over maybe 10, 11%.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to take forever for those phenol alcohols to age out of there, and you're basically, it's nice to have a 14%. Is those 2 or 3 extra percent really worth it, though? In the end, when you could just have a nice, clean, fermented product straight out the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you just want to get lit, go buy some cheap alcohol.
Just go grab some turbo yeast, go grab some Costco honey, make a Costco mail, and you'll be done.
Yeah. Or just go buy some cheap vodka or something.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Hey, we all have those days where we just need a cheap drink. So speaking of recipes and building recipes, how diligently do you build and maintain recipes, and how methodical are you when it comes to altering said recipes if need be?
Yeah, so I've kept a historical log. I probably have a file folder this thick of all my recipes. So I took notes on every recipe that I make. I do take judges' feedback, especially like I said, if it's 2 or 3 or more comps where I'm getting the same feedback. I'm like, okay, then I need to make a little tweak. But once I get a recipe to where I want it, then yeah, I stick with it. I like to stick with what works. Like I said, DV10 is my go-to yeast for traditionals, and I have a whole brick of that stuff.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it type of situation.
Exactly.
We got a question from Jake over there. Says he's curious of what those 2 teardrop-shaped trophies that are flanking the one in the middle are.
Okay, yeah. So I strategically put those back there. Thank you for asking. So yeah, the 2 teardrop, those are like large solid glass. Those are the American Mead Makers Association, which is the AMMA Mead Maker of the Year. One is for 2021, one is for 2023, and then the big one in the middle is from the American Homebrewers Association Mead Maker of the Year for 2022. So I had a nice run of 3 years there where I won Mead Maker of the Year, and that consists, for the AMMA, that consists of 5 to 6 competitions throughout the United States throughout the year where you accumulate points for every comp. And then at the end of the year, whoever has the most points wins Mead Maker of the Year.
Now, just as a point of reference for somebody who would say was trying to shoot for that, it's I think you're right. I think it's 5 or 6 competitions. Let's say for argument's sake, it's 6. How many are you maxing out your number of entries into each one of those comps just to maximize your amount of points for that competition?
Of course, the whole, trying to win all these comps comes down to a lot of math, and so you want to increase your odds. You have to enter you know, as many entries as they'll let you.
Yeah, that
Some comps are 5 entries, some comps are 10 entries, some comps are like unlimited. Um,
yes.
so,
So
so yeah,
yeah,
man. So
you definitely
you have
have
to make
to.
a lot of mead and have 10 good meads sitting around that you can throw into a comp. So
Yeah, very much so. And with all that gained knowledge becomes a really sharpened and honed sense of perception. So when you're making specifically a semi-sweet mead, traditional, um, what are the things that you're looking for, the specific characters in like the honey or in the balance? Or are there specific characters that you're looking for in those things, or do you just kind of like just throw caution to the wind, so to speak, and just let your perception just dial it in and find it on its own?
so at this point in mead making, I've been doing it for a lot of years, won a lot of comps. I'm a mead judge just like you are. I've judged a lot of comps. Um, I've gotten pretty good at knowing, if a mead is good or not. Excuse me, I'm drinking some of that carbonated mead.
Heck yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it has to have all the things that, right? The biggest thing with a mead, especially a traditional, is it has to have good honey character, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I
so you
guess.
should be able to smell the honey. You should be able to taste the honey in a semi-sweet. Now, in a dry category, it may be different, more difficult to pull out honey
Mm,
characteristics because there's less sugars in there. But for the semi-sweet and sweet, you definitely should be able to smell and taste honey. There should be no faults as far as the fermentation goes, no off flavors. Um,
yeah.
it should be nice, crystal clear, because in that category, one of the requirements is you're going to be judged on is how clear is that mead. So you
Absolutely.
want
Yeah.
to, it's probably only going to be 1 point, but that could be the point between making a medal and not. So, and
Absolutely.
then
There's a lot.
you got to have mouthfeel. If it's too light in the mouthfeel, you're going to get dinged on that compared to other meads that are in that category. If it doesn't have any kind of complexity in the finish, which you get from tannins,
Yeah.
again, it's going to lose against other meads that do have that complexity. So you have to really, even though it's a very simple category in that it's just honey and water and yeast and some oak,
Yeah.
um, there's definitely little nuances to it. Maybe you need to add a little bit of acid in the end to help make that honey pop a little bit or to help the mouth feel.
Yeah.
So, but some of those things are just learned over time when
Yeah.
you're tasting meads and talking to people and learning.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said through collaboration, through verbal communications like this, talking back and forth and learning and trying to learn from other people's mistakes through anecdotal evidence and whatnot. But there's also a lot to be said for just going out there and getting in the mud, so to speak, and just slogging through it and you know and
Yeah,
finding out for yourself exactly what's going to happen. Because you know sometimes you get some good advice and sometimes you not necessarily get the most accurate advice, and plus something, maybe there are certain things that work for you that don't work for other people. There's all these different things. So I'm a huge proponent of both those things. Get out there and do it yourself, and certainly try to learn from other people's mistakes.
yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of right ways to do things. And
Mm,
obviously, there's some wrong things, but yeah, I'm not like it's my way or the highway. If you found a way to do it differently and it works well, good for you.
Yeah, it's definitely there's a little bit of artistic side to the science of it all.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a great hobby. I mean, you get to exercise your science and also your creativity. So
Very much so. That's yeah, that's my favorite part is being able to be artistic and creative at the same time. I think it fills both of those slots very nicely. Um, so a little more, I guess, on the kind of thought-provoking side. Um, how do you feel about the state of mead competitions currently? Like, just I guess just a kind of overall perception. Are they? I don't want to even lead in with that. Just what's your overall perception of mead comps today?
I wish there was more of them. There's a handful of competitions that are just meat only. I would like to see more of those. A lot of the competitions that you can enter your meads in are along with beer and cider,
True.
and sometimes you know how many good experienced mead judges do they have at those comps? So
Yeah,
you know
that's been
you if you enter into a mead only comp, you're probably going to get a lot of good mead judges. Uh, but some of the other
mhm.
comps, so I would like to see
Yeah,
more comps. I think everybody that judges mead, I don't like to harp on judges because we're all volunteers, we're all doing our best. I don't think anybody judges a mead with ill will, um,
sure.
and they're just writing down what they perceive, and maybe their palate is off that day or whatever. That's why I don't change anything with my meads based on one competition.
No,
But
yeah, I think that's a great way of looking at it. I do wish there were more mead competitions. I mean, we're lucky in the States where we have, I mean, I guess if you counted them throughout the year, maybe, man, maybe a dozen, 10, 8 to 12 different mead exclusive competitions. And then, like you said, another handful of beer competitions that, graciously allow us to go in there. And you do get the different types of judges. And it's been my experience as well that with the beer comps, you get a less what's the way to put it? A less enthusiastic crowd about mead than you do at a mead exclusive comp. So,
right,
like you said, you definitely have to take everything that's you get from these competitions with a grain of salt. And I agree. I also agree that even though we do have as many as we do, we definitely need a lot more. It's it would only be beneficial to everybody, and it sucks that they can get like start to get pretty especially for the commercial meat makers, they can get really expensive, and especially if you're trying to go trophy hunting, so to speak, that can be
yeah, that's
devastatingly
that's
expensive to a pocketbook.
that's becoming a kind of a problem with all the price
Mm.
increases going on, shipping
Hmm.
cases of bottles
Used to
filled.
be,
It's very expensive, especially if you're doing a 10 entry competition and they want 3 or 4 bottles each. Um,
yeah.
and
Well,
then
you're sending in 48 bottles.
and then the entry fee on top of that, and all the money that you spend on honey and whatever, and it can get pretty expensive if you want to be competitive. And
I bet you could find a trophy shop to make you one of them for all that money, if that was what it was really about. But it's a very it's a very real aspect to it. Is it going to cost a lot of money to get all these things done? It's certainly not for the faint of heart. But I also say
mead
that don't let that
making,
discourage
yeah,
anybody from doing it.
mead making is not a cheap hobby.
No, unfortunately, is most definitely not. I think you can get into it on the entry level. I see a lot of Facebook groups and Reddit forum questions and stuff where you get people that are out there with the Costco, Kirkland signature honeys and the Walmart, the Nate's honey and stuff. And I say if that's all you can get, it's better than not doing anything at all, getting at least practice under your belt. But I don't think you should ever just aspire to be solely an entry level mead maker.
Yeah, I think everybody probably want to challenge themselves to make better mead if they like mead.
Gosh, I hope so. I really question with some of the people, some of these comments I read here and there, but I would like, I'm gonna optimistically be on the same page as you and say yes. Everybody out there desires to be a better mead maker than they are, certainly with better ingredients at least. Um, let's see. Okay? So here's a solid kind of question for you, as somebody who's clearly got a rack of hardware back there. Um, do you think that these folks such as yourself, or commercial meaderies that win a lot, is there an appropriate time for people like that to step aside to make room for more people to enter, or is it more like a steel sharpens steel, and you're only going to get better if you're going against the best?
Yeah, I think that's got to be an individual decision. I know at least locally here, I don't compete much anymore in our local homebrew competitions with my meads.
Yeah.
Um, Not only because I, it's I want to see other people win, but I want to, instead of entering all my entries and then not being able to judge because I have entries in the categories,
Oh,
is
that's
to
a good
just
point.
sit back, let other people um, enter, and then I can judge, and I can also start teaching other people how to judge meats. So at
Yeah.
least locally, yeah, I've kind of backed off. I'm still very competitive when it comes to the nationals. So I am competing again this year for the AMMA.
Nice.
There's three comps left. Right now I'm in third place, but I'm going to
Mm.
press on.
Yeah. Yeah. So who you're battling against? Probably Steve Fletty and Adam Boystrom.
No, those guys aren't playing this year.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, Steve Fletty, I know, put his hat to, or put his yeah. He
Mm.
he's one of those guys that can just kind of come out of retirement and whoop everybody's butt. So
Yeah, that guy makes some ridiculously good meat. But it's good to hear that you're not in retirement yet and you're still out there competing. Because as I was posed that question and I think about it all the time, I agree with what you're saying on the local level. Certainly, um, it almost becomes, for lack my term, not yours, obviously. It takes kind of the fun out of it when you've already dominated that competition, so to speak. It's big fish,
right.
small ponds. Like, I want to go against other people who are of my same ilk. I want to go up against the best of the best. These people are coming up. I'm gonna give these guys a chance. I'm gonna go in there, and I think that's, again, a great thing to go in there.
Mhm.
Hey, here's some tips and tricks on how to make your stuff better, and share that knowledge with, especially with the cats that are there in person, who you can try their meads and give them direct feedback on that stuff, as opposed to just having it through a score sheet through the mail. I think that's a great service that people who are award winning could serve.
Yeah. So when I first got into mead making like 7 years ago or so, and I started competing here locally in Arizona, I was competing against Carvin Wilson, and he was whooping my butt. So I was
Yeah,
like, can't you just retire, dude? So so I can
yeah,
see how the younger people would view, hoping that the guy that's got too much experience really for local comps just kind of bows
yeah.
out at the right time.
Yeah, yeah, it's a double-edged sword to me. It's like I want to go against the best of the best at all the times, just to know where I stand, but it's also nice when those people step aside to make room for everybody else. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer in that instance, to be honest with you. Um, so, to go back kind of towards the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about, the different amounts of gravity points, for the different categories. You've got like, zero, or like 990, which is zero sugar left, up to like 1010 is dry, 1010 to 1025 is semi-sweet, and above 1025 is considered sweet. Um, do you think there's room, or there should be more categories or more diversity amongst those, in that gravity range, or is what's there sufficient enough?
No, I think it's totally sufficient. I mean,
Hmm.
you've already got, comps that don't get enough entries and they start combining, dry with semi-sweet. And that's just kind of a travesty to me because
100%.
it's totally difficult for any dry mead to win against a sweeter mead.
Yeah.
So, and I don't
Yeah.
really understand because even if there's only, let's say there's only 2 dry meads, right? Still judge them on their own merits. And if they judge high enough for a medal, then give them a medal. Who cares if there's only 2 competitors?
Agreed, 100%. Because I think you're doing those two competitors a bigger disservice by judging them against 7 other semi-sweet or sweet meads than just judging them against themselves and letting it be where it is. I mean, even if you want to put some sort of um, I don't know, caveat on, if it has to be at least a 40 medal, or I mean, whatever it's going to be. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, selling selling people a bill of, we're going to put dries with semi sweets just doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah. That's one of the things that kind of angers me about some comps when they pull that. It's like, really, I don't want my sizer to compete up against the pint.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that would certainly, I think, chap my ass more than anything. But the sweet, dry, and semi-sweet all being lumped together is the worst. It is second worst next to category joining together. That is just, oh my gosh.
Because 9 times out of 10, the big guy's going to win.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, here, let's go put
Even
this
the
like,
more sweet, right? The more flavorful meat is probably going to beat the less flavorful meat. Even if the less flavorful or dry meat is actually a better example, it's a tough fight.
right. I mean, that, yeah, the Truniac Polish is going to win over the frickin' dry traditional every single time. It's just, I mean, it's just how it
Right.
is. Um, but
Another thing
yeah, go ahead.
I want to throw in there is that I want to clarify some things about adding oak. So I add oak to almost everything to not only increase my tannins and the length of the whole taste and mouthfeel,
Yeah,
and also obviously flavor. So most meads I do add some oak to, and you have to understand that oak does not have to be declared in any category.
sure.
Period. That's in the BJCP guideline.
Truth.
So yeah. Now, when you're
Well,
talking about something like amburana, which is like sold as a type of oak, but it's not. Okay, amburana. If you've ever tasted that or tasted a mead with it, it's very
yeah,
spicy.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so
very
it has a lot of
distinct.
very distinct and very spicy, and it actually should be. If you use that and it's perceivable, you should put it in a spice category.
Correct. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to go with oak is wood type of thing, I mean, you could theoretically, I mean, isn't cinnamon technically like tree bark? So you could just say cinnamon is wood.
Right.
So we could just put cinnamon in it now. I mean, there's got to be some sort of, um, I don't know, boundaries, lines, so to speak,
Yeah.
guidelines to keep people within. But
Yeah. So I actually clarified that with Sandy Cockerham. I don't know if I'm saying her last name right. Sandy, I'm sorry if I messed up your name. But yeah, I did clarify that with her. She's the BJCP president, so I'm
oh,
taking
nice.
her word for it that amburana is not what we consider an oak.
Oaking, right. Oaking would be French, Hungarian, American oak, different levels of toast, but I think we pretty much the wine world and mead being a wine follows through that. Oak is oak, and other woods are other woods.
Yeah.
So, I agree with what you're saying on the not dividing categories out because there's already not enough entries. But what about like on the sweeter end of the scale? You don't think there's room for like a sweeter, like say anything from 1025 to like 1050 is sweet, and then beyond 1050 is like dessert sweet or pastry sweet or something like that.
Mm. That would be a tough sell because even on the sweet level, you'll get a lot of judges that will say it's cloyingly sweet or it tastes like there's raw honey, and that's one of the things that just caps my eye is that when they comment that they taste raw honey, and it's like, well, of course there's raw honey in there. We back sweetened with honey. It's raw, but
Right.
I
Back
don't
sweetening
know.
is by by process adding raw honey into your product, so you're going to taste raw honey character. Yeah, I that was one that always kind of confused me. Is like, we don't want to, you don't want to taste raw honey. I'm like, well, I mean, isn't that like raw honey is just honey characteristic? Like, that's kind of the point, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Uh,
some of it is just we need to educate our judges more, and our judges,
mm.
including myself, I always need more practice.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. More learning, more training, more time at the table. I always get like a wave of anxiety before I go to an event just because I feel like I need to do my best to do a service to the meads that I'm judging. I'm like, man, am I good enough to do this? Um, do I have enough experience? Do I have the right palate? Do I have that je ne sais quoi to be like a good judge? Do I have that, what it's going to take? And the more I do it, the better, the less trepidatious I am when I go to a judging event.
So I see a raisin question up there.
How about raisins that have fermate R? Is it
Yeah.
still a traditional? Um, Man, I guess if you're putting raisins in your stuff still
So
in your,
I don't mind. I don't mind trying to answer that one.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Legitimate.
So number one, raisins are not a nutrient. Okay. So if you're adding raisins for nutrient, yeah, you have to add a whole lot of raisins. And
Yeah,
part two is if you add enough raisins to where the raisins are now perceivable, now it's
you're
not a
making them.
traditional.
Yeah, now you're making a mellow or a piment of
Correct.
some sort, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would be. Yeah, it would be a fruit. So
I mean, yeah, mellow piment, whatever. But yeah, agreed. If you're putting enough in there to where the raisins are perceivable, you've kind of gone past the the traditional category there.
if you just put a handful in for nutrients, you're wasting your time in both aspects.
Yeah, your raisins and your actual time. Um, what about like any like tips from a judge for people who are like filling out their scorecards there uh the entry sheets. Somebody who's filling out their entry sheets. What any sort of like tips for filling out? I know we talked to Nick last time, and his tip was when it comes to meat descriptions, less is more. Don't go out off the rails and describe every single little nuanced flavor. Even if you put, say, strawberries in there and you can't perceive the strawberries, maybe don't write it down because it's gonna, dock you points. Somebody's gonna dock you points for not being able to perceive those strawberries.
Absolutely. Totally agree with Nick on that point. Less is better. Only list ingredients that are perceivable.
Yep.
Um, yeah, because, you know, us that we're as judges, we're looking for the things to keep you from getting a perfect 50. So that's not my outlook, but it seems like that could be the outlook of some judges. So yeah, just pick out the stuff that's perceivable, list it, even if there's more ingredients in there. If they're not perceivable, don't list them. That'd be my advice.
Yeah. I like to add raisins to my meat so that you rehydrate and I lose yield. I know what the raisin share. Oh, Steve, you're hilarious. Legitimate question from Susan up there says, can you talk about using pH to adjust acidity and balance? Yeah, so do you, because honey is already a kind of acidic product as it is, um, when
Yeah.
you're, do you, how do you adjust your pHs? Do you do that on the fly? Do you do that specifically post fermentation? Is it something you account for in your initial recipe building?
So typically, doing your acid, what we call acid titration or acid trials, is one of
Hmm.
the last things. One of the last things I do in secondary before clarifying and bottling. So you need to, and I just did a whole presentation on this at my local homebrew club. I'm doing acid trials. So you make yourself up like 10%. I use mostly tartaric acid because that's the great,
Mm,
and it's relatively highly
neutral
acidic compared to
acid.
other acids, but it doesn't have a whole lot of flavor.
Right.
Unlike citric acid, which can be very harsh.
Oh, very much
Um,
so.
yeah, so you need to get yourself a row of samples, maybe 5 samples of 100 mLs each, and then you need to add 1 ml to the first. First you have to have your base sample, and then add 1
Yeah.
ml to one, and 2 ml to the next, 3 and 4, and then just
Yeah.
taste them and figure out which one is the best. So using that, you know, scale of 1 ml and 100 ml, you can figure out that ratio, and how many milligrams of actual acid to add to your big batch.
Yeah, and that's I think you're touching on a very without touching on it, I think you're touching on a very important aspect of mead making is I cannot stress enough the importance of doing things by volume as far as like milliliters, milligrams, and not using like teaspoons and tablespoons and stuff like that. I think it'll go a lot longer, a lot farther, um, for the reasons that you're saying. It is for scalability. It's a lot harder to convert 2 cups over to how many ounces of this, that, and the other things. Just if you use milligrams, milliliters at all, it's just a base 10 system, and you might not be good at it initially, but a little bit of time and effort into it, and I promise it will. It will alleviate a lot of headaches when scaling up your batches.
Yeah, acid additions and fine tuning at the end is one of the most important things as far as again, taking that mead that's good and making it great, or making it from good to world class.
100%. Yeah, like we were talking about earlier, going from a 32 to a 42, acidity adjustments, tannic balance, flavor, dial in all those things. Like your oaking, like those are like they call it your trinity, your balance, but that's like seasoning your meat. Who doesn't want a properly seasoned meal? It's yeah, you can eat it, it's going to sustain you, but it's not going to be enjoyable. Your meads are the same way. If it's not seasoned properly, yeah, it's still a meat, and you drink it, and it might be quasi enjoyable, but it could be so much more.
Mhm. Right.
Um, and then one last question here, coming up on the 1 hour mark. What would you say are any like I know we've covered a lot of ground here, but anything that we haven't covered, what would you say some common like pitfalls or some of the mistakes that people make when make? Hmm. What are some common pitfalls people come across when making a semi-sweet traditional mead or aiming to
Mm.
make a semi-sweet
So
traditional mead?
I already touched on this, and that's not matching your ABV to the sweetness. So
Mm,
you can't have a huge ABV mead with a honey that can't, what I call, carry it or sustain. The flavors will be off balance because, like, again, alcohol has flavor, and it has aromas. So when we're doing the judging, we're judging aroma, and we're judging the balance and the flavors. If your ABV is too high, you're going to get nailed. So,
oh yeah.
you know,
Yep. I think that I agree with you. I think that's a very underserved message in the meat balancing
yeah,
realm of things
and,
is
and,
don't
and
over don't
knowing what things are on each side of that balance. You got your honey and your sugars on one side, along with your alcohol, and then your
yep.
tannins, your acidity, your carbonation are on the other. So,
Yeah, I think that's one thing a lot of people forget or maybe don't know is that alcohol is a type of sugar. So I mean, you're just converting it from one type of sugar to another type of sugar. So you're it's still going to be it's going to help add to that perceived sweetness scale. So the stronger you make it, it's going to
yeah,
balance out on that sugar side more than it does on the
right.
acidity or tannic side.
I just did a dry berry, and even though it was completely dry, like 1.000, it
Pretty
had a
dry,
sweetness to it, because it had a perceived sweetness because of the berries. So,
right? Yeah, there's another quick question there for you, or maybe not quick, but any tips on increasing or creating a better aromatic profile in your meads?
So that's where you need to hit the Scott Labs handbook and see what yeast enhance aromatics. So
Yeah.
not to jump away from traditionals, but any kind of berry mead or pie mint, uh, red grape. I've used RC212. It just the aromatics just blast
Mm.
you in the face from that yeast.
That's one I haven't messed with yet. I found that I don't really particularly care for was it QA23? To me, QA23 makes everything taste like pineapples.
Dude, you got to QA23 is an amazing yeast. You have to use it correctly. It's a
And see, and
beautiful
that's
size. It's a beautiful sizer yeast, but you got to ferment it cold. You got to be
see,
cold.
that's
You got to be like high 50s and just slow. And that's a really clean yeast for sizers.
See, and that's everything I've been doing with it has been on the warmer, definitely on the warmer end of the
No,
spectrum. So,
you're gonna get a lot of tropical. Yeah,
oh yeah, it is super duper tropical, and yeah, I think that's a great point, Susan. Like Alan brings up, you get that Scott Labs yeast handbook, and I'm sure. Well, I guess I shouldn't say I'm sure, but I'm guessing that other places like Y yeast or White Labs, or I'm sure there's different yeast profiles. Whoever your person is that you're looking for, but look into those different profiles for your yeasts, um, because especially when you're working with traditionals, whatever the honey profile is basically what you're working with. The only other addition you have is the yeast. I know a lot of people are going to say, the water profile plays a fairly important aspect, which it does. Um, but I think you're going to get a larger yield of flavor profile out of your yeast before you do your water.
yeah. I use home RO water for all my meads. Um,
Okay.
it is a fancier RO in that it actually adds some minerals back in after it strips it down. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, living in Arizona, that's kind of necessary. Arizona water sucks.
it's horrible. But yeah, QA23. I even have thought about using that again, fermented cold for a traditional because I think it would do the honey a good justice and kind of leave it alone. It'd be a good clean fermenter. Because sometimes DV10 is hard to get a hold of. I actually had to buy a big huge brick.
Yeah.
Same thing with a lot of the adjuncts that Scott Labs makes for all these different nuances that you can increase. But
Yeah.
a lot of them are, they're geared towards commercial industry and they're not available in smaller packages. So
100%. Yeah, certainly if you have the room and you're planning on making multiple batches throughout the year, buying in a larger scale is always going to be beneficial to you. Just throw that stuff in the fridge, you'll be all right. Um, any last words of wisdom, closing memos, notes, messages, tips, tricks, hints that you want to throw out?
mm,
Words of wisdom.
no, I think we covered some good stuff tonight.
I love it. No, we've covered
We
all the
could
good stuff. Man,
we
that
could we
makes
could
me
do
feel
another
good.
whole we could do another whole session on tips and tricks of entering and winning competitions. But
Oh, just yeah,
yeah,
just entering and winning competitions in general. You know what? Maybe you should join me for that, and we'll do one of those later on, maybe next year or something like that. Because I started the
yeah.
year new competitions. I would love it. But um, thank you so much for joining me tonight, Alan, and best of luck on your entries through the rest of the Mead Maker of the year. And hopefully you can make it a hat trick there and get three of them bad boys up there.
Oh man, that would really piss Bill Boyer off.
Ooh, shots fired! I love it. Um,
No, I love Bill. I
oh,
actually hope he wins this year, but I'm not going to make it easy on him.
no, definitely don't make it easy on him. And that Bill does make some phenomenal meals. I've had the pleasure of judging with him on multiple occasions. And yeah, the dude, he's a great guy, a great judge, great mead maker. So
Yeah.
hats off to him, and hats off to you for those. Congratulations on all your wins and everything. And again, thank you for joining me. Have a great rest of your night, brother.
Take care. Talk to you later.
You, yep, you too. All right, M1B, semi-sweet traditionals down and dirty. Join me next week. We'll be doing M1Cs with Zymarium Meadery. Joe is finally found up some free time. Man, I'll tell you what, it's awesome that those guys are so busy over there that they don't have free time to join and do videos, because that means that they're kicking ass and doing massive sales and they're creating a successful business. But I've been fortunate enough they found some time to join us. So Zymarium Meadery next week, we'll be doing M1C's Sweet Traditionals. It's going to be a great show. I'm already forecasting that. So I'll see you guys next week. Peace.